Hello everyone, I'm Paul and welcome to Gelling Outdoors. Today is the second part of my woodshed storage bin, and I'm going to show you a little bit here. What I'm doing right now is I'm squaring up all the lumber that I milled last year. So I'm just going to show you the area. I'll move this board out of the way. So basically I'm going to put the shed right in here. In this area here, it's going to be 10 feet wide, 10 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 7 foot to 7'4" tall. So I want to show you over here. I've got this one shed. If you come this way, I made this one last year, and it's going to be fairly similar to this, but slightly different because it'll be larger. And the other thing is the roof style will be quite a bit different. And also on the new one, I'm going to have a wall that comes in on this side about this distance. I don't know whether it would be 1 foot or 2, and it'll be the same thing on that side as well. That's to give it more structural strength. So you can see here I've got a bunch of boards that I've already cut to dimension. I've got these all squared up, and then just over here in my trailer I've got a whole load of 2x4s. Now these, like as mentioned, they were all cut last year. Excuse me. Anyways, the one thing I wanted to point out is that this wood has dried somewhat. It's not completely dry. The widths of the boards are anywhere from 3 to 4 inches wide. They do vary, but I'm not too worried about that. All I have to do is line it up so I have a flush on the outside. The other thing too is they're all approximately 2 inches thick. Some of them have warped and stuff, but I'm going to use them. This is a rough build, so I'm not too concerned about that. Over here, you can see I have a stack. These are all 1/2 inch. This is the stack of wood that I cut in my previous video. I'll leave a link in the description, or you can see the at the end of my video, this video here, you'll see a link to this wood that I milled up in my previous video. Anyways guys, for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to square it all up, and I'll be back when I'm ready to start to build. Alright guys, I've squared up all the lumber for most of it anyways, and in addition to that, what I've done is I've actually cut some of them to length, and I'll show you here on the table that I've created. You can see here I've marked out my wood by making lines at 16-inch centers, so when I put it up it'd be a lot easier to do. Also, what I've done is I've identified my lumber. These boards that you see here as a table, basically that is my header and base for on the shed. If you look close here, I've got S-T left, that stands for side, the top and the left. Next one would be the side, the bottom and the left. And the next one, the side, it's the top left, and this is for a tie-in. Now the tie-in basically is for when I do a little bit of an overlap at the top where I can tie in the length with the width. And as you notice here, I've marked all the other boards accordingly to what I want to do with them. If we look just down over here, I've cut all the studs. These are the studs I'm going to use. They're all 7 feet tall. So the shed will be the base plus the first header and a second header on the top. So it'll be about almost 7 foot 6, somewhere around that area there. And also what I've done is I've cut these little small pieces here. These are going to be for the front wall, just a small piece, so the front wall will come out. As you see, this one here doesn't have a front wall. This one will have, this will be the base, and then there'll be a beam or a stud going up, and there'll be that much of a front wall, and then there'll be an opening, and there'll be a wall on each side. Because the shed's going to be bigger, I need a little bit more structure. Also, I'm just going to show you down here, I've got all the pieces that I cut up. They're not for waste. Some of them I could use for support and some for other stuff. But this one bundle here is specifically used for when I do the roofing. What I'm going to do with the roofing, I want it to slope on an angle. So it would be something like this. What I'm going to have, this is going to come up on the front of the shed, and my roof is going to slope backwards like that, so I can get the snow and the rain to go off the back of the shed. So these are just like little mini beams or mini posts or mini studs, however you want to call them. I don't know the technical word for it anyways. This lumber here is just some extra lumber in case I need to do something. I am going to need to do a few cross pieces to give structural support. One thing that's not here right now, that is the top of the roof. I don't have the rafters to go across yet. I still have to get them. I've got a big stack of wood. This is only a little bit of the wood that I had cut last year, except for the siding, which I cut just in my previous video. So anyways, what the next step to do is to start building the walls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the back wall, the two side walls, and the front wall. So let's get it done. To build the walls, it's just a replication for each wall. So I'm just going to show you the start, and then I'll complete the walls. So what I do first is I just lay all the boards down on the ground. You can see here I have my bottom and then my top, and then I have the studs going across. So if you come down here at this end here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw down in here at the end. And the important thing here is that I have the board flush at the top and square as best as I can. You can see here it's nice and flush. Now these boards are cut all at different dimensions, so it's important that I have them all flush at the one side, and that's because I want to put the siding on there. So now the trick here as well is to only put one screw in, and the reason for that, we're going to go down here and do one on the other end. And the reason I do that is because if the board is twisted or bowed, then if you put two screws in at that end, then you're going to have a hard time to get it lined up at this end. So put one here, and you go back down to the other end, you put the second screw after. So I'm just going to line this up. Again, I was just going to get my screw started. And I want to make sure that's as flush as I can get it. Nice and square. And then, as you see here, I've got my markings. So all I'm going to do now is just go down to the next board, put another screw, line up this mark here with the center of the board. It doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be close. So I'm just going to make it flush again, and pretty much in the center. And then I'm going to go down to the other side. Do the same thing here. See, now this is, you can see my board is kind of twisted because I have one screw down at the other end. I can quite easily twist it straight now. That's the trick there. A lot of people put two screws in there, and it's no good to do that. You put the second screw after you get your board all lined up. Anyways, so basically all it is a repeat process. You go down and do the rest of the boards. And as I mentioned, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the walls now. I'll just put them all together. You got the gist of how I'm going to do it. Once I got them all assembled, the next stage is to actually put the walls together. Okay guys, as you can see here, basically I got 1, 2, and 3 walls. I put them up already. It was a lot easier to do it off camera than trying to move it around. One thing I had done is you've noticed there's a piece of strapping here and here, and then one on the other side here. And the reason why I did that, and there's also on the bottom as well, so you can see them there. And the reason why I did that is when I had the walls on the ground, I squared them up, and I put the piece of strapping or siding there to keep it in square when I lifted the walls up and put them together. So I want to show you, I'm going to go up here on the ladder. Earlier, what I did is I mentioned earlier that I want to tie my back into the front and into the side. So if you look here, basically this board hasn't been nailed yet, but you can see here this top stud here that I put, or top plate, is that what I did is I cut it short. So now I'm going to put this piece here that's going to tie the back, the side, and then I'm going to put the front wall in a minute, and the front wall will be all tied into one another. So it's just something that's important to do when you're building something like this. So I'll just bang a few nails in just to hold this into place. And then what I'll do is I'll get the lift the front wall up and put it into place. Let's line it up. So now basically I've tied the back wall and the side wall with just 2 nails, and that gives it a lot more structural support. Okay, I'm going to go and put the front wall up and we'll tie the front wall in. As you can see, here's my front wall. I've got 2 sections to it. I've got the other one just over there to the right, or to my left rather. That's the mini wall or the pony wall, where I kind of extend up higher so I can run my rafters going this way to basically get a slope on the roof. So let's put this one up. Now, one thing to note, my ground here is not 100% level. I don't want it, or I don't need it to be level yet. We'll level it after. There'll be a few other things I got to do. So I got this side done here, just putting it together. And now I'm going to go up top and I'm going to tack the wall with that beam I was talking about, ties the back to the front and the side. So guys, if you look really close here, there's a little bit of a space here. That's because this wall here is lower. I'm just going to shim it up after, and then I'll tack the rest away. I just want to get my other side tacked before I do that. Okay, so basically I've got my 4 walls up. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go off camera. I'm just going to do is come over here on the outside of the wall. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to tack this board here to this one here on both sides, and then I'm going to put the roofing piece up. Okay guys, you can see here I've got the small wall up, the pony wall or the roof wall. I'm going to have my 2x4s going in the back, or 2 by something anyways, running for rafters going across the back to take on the roof and the snow load and such. If you notice down here, basically the bottom of it, the bottom plate, it locks in here against the side plate. That's why it's short here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple pieces here, and these pieces are going to lock in the side plate that comes across here. So now I've got a lot of structural strength in there. So I'm just going to bang a couple nails in here. Throw a couple nails in there, and then we'll put a second piece on after that. The first one here, I'm only going to put 2. I don't need more than that. It's just to tack it in place to give it a little bit more width and lock it down. I've got the sun right in my eyes right now, so it's hard to hammer. That's close enough. The next guy. So then we got one more, just an adjustment there. Got one more board to put up. Well, this one here, we're going to put 3 nails, and we're going to stagger the nails. As you can see there, I'm going to put one there, and then in the middle one is going to come out to the outside. It's just a little bit stronger nailing technique, I guess you can say. And the third one will come about here. So then we'll put the board up, line it up, and then pound it in. Can't see because of the sun. Boy, that board is bouncing around on me. There we go. Okay, adjust it at the top now. And the last one here. In a bad position on my ladder. I'm just blocking the sun out of my face here. I'm not trying to hide from you. Okay guys, so if we come on down here, we'll take a look. So I'm inside here, and you can see it's fairly tall. You can see if we go up on the top here, so this here point here is about 7'4", as I mentioned earlier. It was going to be about that. And then I've got my roof to extend a little further. It's a little over about 9.5 feet, and it's going to slope down towards the back, so everything will run off. Excuse me. If you look down here, there's a ditch down there, and there's water that runs in the springtime and the fall as well. It's a ditch that runs, it gets quite a bit of water in it from the pond that I have in the back. So the next step to do is to do the roof. And what I have to do is I've got to cut a little bit more wood for that, and once that's done, I'll be back here. I may show you me cutting a little bit of the wood. I want to explain a couple things to you as well. If you look here, as I mentioned earlier, you can see how the board is inward, and then this one's out a little bit, and this one's kind of nice, this one's kind of out a little bit. The reason for that is that all this wood was all experimental wood, so, and has different thicknesses. They're also not, some are like 2 3/4, some are about 2 1/4 inches thick and so on. But as long as you put all the boards even on the outside, you're going to be fine. The inside doesn't matter because I'm not paneling it or anything like that, so I don't excuse me, I don't have to have it all nice and even. The other thing here is there's not going to be any floor in here. I don't put a floor in the wood sheds. What I do is I just cut boards, and I don't use skids because they rot out too fast. What I do is I just cut boards about 6 inches wide. I put 2, and I just put the wood on top of those boards. And the reason why I do that is because it's a lot easier to change out the boards than it is to change out a skid. They fit a lot better inside. And the other thing is that you don't have to deal with nails that are on the skids when they start to rot out, and you don't end up stepping on one. The one last thing I want to mention is that you notice that here the wood is all on the ground. The reason for that is that I always put I'm going to cut some cedar, or I'll put pressure treated underneath it, and the whole shed will sit up on about maybe, I don't know, 4 inches up, or 3 to 4 inches up high. And when that rots, I change it out. So this base here never rots. It'll be the base that's going to be underneath it. You'll see that later on when I get to that point. Anyway, so the next thing to do, I'm going to go cut some lumber. All right, guys, I've got all the rafters cut. You can see up here on the roof. They're all up on here now. The next thing to do is to hammer them in. What I don't do, if you look here on the board, I don't do a bird's mouth. What I do is I make a mark to where I want to line my wood up, and I'll pull it up about this distance. And that's my marking. And instead of using a bird's mouth, what I do is I use a locking technique. If you just look underneath this one here, you see there's a block of wood here. And on the other side, the other rafter, the first one that I started. And what I've done is I've nailed this block of wood down, and then I've nailed the rafter into the block of wood. So the next thing to do is with my next rafter, just line it up to where my mark is, and all I have to do now is hammer it in to the other block. So now that rafter is locked in nice and tight. I'm going to put a second nail in here. I always put 2, and then I'll show you the next step. The beauty about this method is that 2 things. One, my board is going to be locked in place, so it won't do all this twisting stuff on me. Second thing is you don't have the to toe nail going in. You just hit the nail straight across. It's much easier. And actually the third thing is, because if you had a bird's mouth here, what you're doing is you're taking away some of the integrity of the wood. It won't be as structurally as sound. So that's not quite as good. So the next thing that I do is I'm going to put the second rafter. I'm going to double up all my rafters. I'll put the second one here in place, and it's going to slide it over on the back end a bit, and I'm just going to make it flush up here on this end here. It's going to bring it flush, and then all I have to do is put the next nail in. So I'm nailing this rafter into one another. We'll do that. Because this is just a supporting rafter to the first rafter, what I do is I just put 1 nail. So the next thing to do is take your next block, put your block, line it flush on the face on this side here where I am, and just hammer your block down. So now my block is in place. The next thing I'm going to do is take the next rafter, slide it over, and I'm going to repeat the process. I'm just going to put it where the measurement mark is, and then I just tack it in this way. And what you do at the other end, the back end, if you look down at the back end, you can kind of see I've got it started over there. So I would be putting blocks the same way. So anyways, guys, that's a really good technique to, instead of toenailing and using bird's mouth, because bird's mouth, as far as I'm concerned, that's just not a good way to build. It's taken away from structure. It has its benefit where it kind of hooks in, but this is locked in way better than, as far as I'm, in my opinion anyways, that it's much better than the bird's mouth technique. Anyways, let's move on to the next part. On to the siding. couple things about the siding. I'm spacing it just with the block, and the second thing is I'll have some boards like this here where they're kind of broken, almost broken in half. Those are still good to use, no use to waste that. So just continue on doing the siding. Alright guys, I'm ready to do the roof. You can see here what I've cut. I've cut 1-inch boards. These are 1x10s, these are 1x8s, and over here I've got some shorter boards. What I'm going to do is the roof, and what I'm going to put up the boards, they're not quite long enough to reach span right across, so I use a long board, then a short board, and then I'm going to use a short board or a long board coming back and then a short board. So I'm going to stagger them. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just squaring everything up. They just came off the mill, so I'm just going to square everything up, and let's get that done. The far ends are already squared up. That's why you didn't see me cut it on the other side. So we'll get this one done as well. I like using nails. I don't like using screws very much. I enjoy nailing things in a lot more than putting with the drill. Plus the screws that you buy today, they're so darn cheap. The nails are cheap enough as it is, but the screws are even worse. So anyways, guys, basically I'm just going to continue to repeat this process, just one piece after another. It's going to take a bit of time, so what I'll do is I'll do a little bit, then I can get up on top of the roof and then we can film a little bit more. Alright guys, basically I'm almost finished here on the top. I'm finished off with the 1x10s. I'm working on the 1x8s. I have about 4 more rows to go and then I'm all done. So after I finish the roof, the next thing to do is the shingles. I don't think I'll be showing too much on the shingling. I'll probably just show you once it's all finished. Alright guys, I'm down to the last 2 shingles. I wasn't going to show anything about shingling, but changed my mind and decided to show you a little bit. Just a quick tip here. You notice I've got a block of wood. When I do is I use the block of wood and it supports my feet, my heels a little bit, so I don't have to bend as much. This takes a lot of pressure off your back by having that board there. So anyways, got 2 more shingles to put. So we'll just knock these in. Just line it up quick. Too many nails in my hand at once. And the ones when I get close to the end here, I like to put extra nails. And we got our last shingle here. Straight down in here. Get it lined up. Just a little bit there. Alright guys, basically the shed is all done except for at the very top. I've got to do some flashing at the top. I don't have the flashing. I won't get that until next week. Then I'll finish the roof off. I had just showed you the shingles. So if you take a look at the shed, nice big wide door. I've got the door nice and wide so I can come in with my tractor and dump all the wood. You can see here inside, if we look up, you can see it's got a nice tall roof in here. Now the reason why I got part of a taller roof is not to stack my wood up that high, but it helps with the venting. But what I do is in the fall time I can hang vegetables as well as things like garlic and onions to get them to cure. So that's partly it's a multi-purpose shed, I guess you can say. Down on the bottom here you can see I've got my 2x4s. Normally what I do is I use 1x6s. These are 2x4s that are pretty bad shape, so I just use those. As I mentioned, I don't use skids. Down on the bottom here you can see I put the pressure treated mini ties all the way around. So anytime that if these things rot out, all I have to do is pull them out, lift the wall up, pull it out, and it'll preserve this top plate on the bottom. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load my firewood up in here. So if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up by hitting the like button down below. Also, if you have not subscribed to my channel, you can do so by hitting the subscribe button down below. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Gelling Outdoors.